the elections, government, the administration will stand neutral. Neither for or against kami, kalaban o kasama sa partido. We will participate in the exercise of that right, but we will see to it that there will be no terrorism about buying at intimidation and everything that would put a hindrance to an honest election. Lastly, I said that as I step down in June 2022, it will be my highest honor to turn over the reins of power to my successor, knowing that in the exercise of my mandate, I did my best to serve the Filipino people. Reminder again in relation to this, may I implore, para na akong implore, para na akong nakikiusap na halos nagdadasal na lang sa inyo, implore everyone who are participating in large gatherings, whether political in nature or not, to continue exercising utmost caution and prudence in the conduct of your exercises. Remember that we are still in a pandemic situation, and any large gathering may trigger a super spreader event. While we welcome these exercises as concrete and tangible manifestations of our healthy democracy, kindly temper your enthusiasm and act reasonably. So ganito yan, marami tayong problema. Mayroon tayong national emergency. And we do not also want to curtail the right of the people to freely assemble for the redress of grievance or to discuss any matter that is allowable in a democracy. Ang problema dito ganito, hindi ninyo, alala mo yung meeting niya ngayon, mabutit na lang siguro at marami na talagang nabakunahan, medyo na there's a lesser casualty now. But do not tempt the gods. Huwag mong hingiin talaga na ikaw na ang humingi sa umaabot sa atin, aabot, kung hayaan natin na ganito. So I'd like to call the attention of the COMELEC. Kayo man ang ngayon, you are the ones supervising the elections. As a matter of fact, you are the one running the show. Hindi ba ninyo, could you not just issue i-maintain lang yung social distance? Hindi na ba ano karami? Punuin mo yung luneta as long as you maintain the regulations imposed by government. Kasi mahirap po ito kung magbalik. It might come back with vengeance. Babalik itong sakit na ito, baka magrabe pa. We are not out of the woods. The virus still there. Yung status natin na national emergency nandyan pa. So hanggang talagang safe na, the doctors will say and the scientists will tell us that it is safe to move around and go out and mingle again in a crowd. Well, hintayin muna natin yan. In the meantime, let us not presuppose that since there has been a vaccine available to all, do not ever presume na wala na yung danger of recontamination. Ngayon dito tayo sa Baguio. In an advisory yesterday, December 12, Pag-asa, Weather Bureau has informed the public that the low pressure area east of the Philippine area of responsibility has developed into a tropical depression and may further intensify into a tropical storm within the next 24 hours. So, wala sigurong biyahe ngayon. I direct our government agencies and LGUs as well as to urge our countrymen, especially those who are on or near its projected path, to keep monitoring the situation and conduct all necessary preparations and precautions. Nandiyan naman yan, yung dadaanan ng bagyo, lumalabas dyan sa newspaper, pati sa TV. All you have to do is to watch TV and makita mo yung trajectory ng takbo ng bagyo. So, kung malapit kayo dyan, medyo umalis na muna kayo. Especially if the Pag-asa, the Weather Bureau would say, umalis kayo dyan sa lugar na yan kasi dyan tatama. Yung precautions, ano lang ninyo, sundin lang ninyo. May Tagalog mo nito. Mga kababayan, ipagpatuloy lang natin ang mga mga kababayan, ipagpatuloy lang natin ang iba yung pag-ingat laban sa virus at palagi nating sundin ang minimum public health standards at health protocols sa lahat ng pagkakataon, sa lahat ng oras. Should the current positive trend we see continue, dagdagan mo ng God willing, and we as citizens remain cooperative with the government and health authorities, we will have a merrier and happier Christmas and New Year and fully overcome this pandemic. Maraming salamat. Huwag mo yung magandang gabi. Wala pa. Hindi pa tayo tapos. Malayo pa. Let's have an update to be given to us by Secretary Duque.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. President. Magandang gabi. Magandang gabi po kay Ginoong Senator Bongo, ES Medialdea at mga kasama ko po sa kabinete. Ang akin pong iuulat ngayon, with your permission, Mr. President, ay tungkol po sa idaraos na Bayanihan Bakunahan 2, ligtas, lakas buong Pinas sa darating na December 15 to 17, 2021. Next slide. Kami ay patuloy na tumatanggap ng mga voluntaryo or volunteers para sa ating pong National Vaccination Day 2. At hinihikayat namin ang ating mga next generation heroes o mga empleyado ng gobyerno, ang pribadong sektor at ang civil society na makilahok bilang bahagi ng ating vaccination teams sa ating pong 18 priority areas. So, andyan po yung mga nakasulat, mga lugar na madi-deploy ang ating pong mga volunteers para po sa round 2 of our massive 3-day vaccination. Ang gagastusin ng ating pong mga volunteers ay sasagutin ng gobyerno at hintayin lamang ang kumpirmasyon ng inyo pong sa 2 at suporta sa inyong mga bayarin at transportasyon at accommodation kung kinakailangan mula sa mga sumusunod na ahensya. Sa DOH, kung ikaw ay empleyado ng DOH Central Office, Regional Offices at mga ospital. Sa kanilang mga opisina, kung ikaw ay empleyado ng ibang mga ahensya ng gobyerno, at sa DOH Centers for Health Development para sa mga empleyado ng pribadong sektor at mga individual. Next. Ang ating pong National Vaccination Operation Center ay maglalabas din ng advisory ukol sa inaasahan pagpasok ng bagyong Odette sa ating bansa, kasabay na ang pagpapatupad ng Bayanihan Bakunahan 2, kasama sa advisory po ang mga sumusunod. Pagkatapos po ng aking pag-uulat, Mr. President, si Secretary Vince Dizon at si Secretary Galvez at kami po kasama si Secretary Ed Anyo ay nagkasundo na magrekomenda po na itong bagyong Odette na paparating at mukhang magiging tropical storm ay kami po ay nirekomenda na ang ating National Vaccination Part 2 ay ipopospone muna natin doon sa mga dadaanan po ng bagyo from December 15, 16, 17 ay gagawin po natin sa December 20, 21, 22. At ito pong dadaanan ng bagyo, batay po sa mga pinakahuling ulat mula sa Pag-asa, ay posible pong Northern Mindanao, ang Central and Eastern Visayas, at ang Southern Tagalog region ay hindi po na muna natin itutuloy ang bakunahan dahil kailangan po mailayo sa peligro ang ating po mga kababayan sa panahon nitong bagyong Odette. So Mr. President, ang rekomendasyon po namin ay ang Calabarzon and northern central and northern Luzon, yan po ang atin munang ipagpapatuloy ang Bayanihan Bakunahan Part 2, Mr. President. So sisiguraduhin po natin ang kaligtasan ng ating mga health worker, volunteers at magpapabakuna sa darating na bakunahan. Kaya naman maaaring magkaroon po tayo ng gaya ng sinabi ko posibleng suspension sa bakunahan. Pero mamaya po ay kailangan po ay kung pwedeng madesisyonan na po ito, Mr. President, with your permission. So ikalawa, inaasahan ng mga local vaccine operation centers na ipatupad ang kanilang mga contingency plans upang mapanatili ang kalidad ng ating mga bakuna sa kabila ng banta ng bagyong Odette. And lastly, Mr. President, muli hinihikayat namin ang lahat na makiisa sa ating Bayanihan Bakunahan 2. Magpabakuna kung ikaw ay hindi pa nakatatanggap ng iyong una o ikalawang dose ng primary series, o kung ikaw ay eligible ng makatanggap ng booster dose. O kaya naman magboluntaryo at buhayin ang bayanihan spirit sa pagbibigay natin ng proteksyon ng pagbabakuna sa ating pong mga kababayan. So lahat tayo ay may malaking parteng ginagampanan sa ating COVID-19 response. Sama-sama po natin abutin ang ating hangarin babakunahan ng lahat ng eligible populations upang mapanatili natin mababa ang mga kaso at magkaroon tayo ng isang tunay na maligayang Pasko at bagong taon kasama ang ating mga mahal sa buhay. So yun lamang Mr. President ang aking pong iuulat. Patungkol naman doon sa updates, pareho naman po na hanggang ngayon, mababa po tayo as a minimal risk po ang buong Pilipinas. pagka tinignan po natin yung epidemiological curve at saka yung ADAR or average daily attack rate less than 1 per 100,000 population, at ang ating pong 2-week growth rate, ganun po ay nananatiling as a negative zone. Kanya lahat po ito ay bumubuo ng isang risk classification minimal kung tawagin. At so ito po ay ang pati case fatality rate natin ay andyan po sa 1.7%. At harinawa ito lahat ay manatiling ganito, or if possible mas mapababa pa rin natin ang bilang ng mga kaso. Kaya nananawagan din po ako, Mr. President, sa lahat po ng mga local chief executives na magsagawa ng kanilang mapping up operations, na habang mababa na po ang mga kaso, kung matukoy pa ho nila kung saan talaga galing ang mga patuloy na mga kaso ng COVID, ay dapat po dito talaga magsagawa sila ng early detection, testing, contact tracing, para nang sa ganoon ay posibleng kung ma-zero natin yung mga COVID cases sa kanila po mga komunidad, maganda po sana na gamitin na po natin itong pagkakataong ito habang mabababa ang kaso. Kanya, yun lang po, Mr. President, at maraming salamat po sa lahat.
Salamat, Secretary Duque. Now we call Secretary Galvez to give us the updates of the national vaccination program. By the way, before you start, I forgot to mention one important player kanina. There are actually 4 superstar here, and I forgot to mention Secretary Anyo. Dapat Galvez, Dizon, pati Duque, pati sila ang nagdala ng programa lahat, implementing. And may iba naman sinasabi na maganda daw pagkadala, congratulating me. Sabi ko na huwag niya ako i-congratulate Anyo, Galvez, Duque, and Vince Tison. Sila yung nagpagod ng husto. They are yung mga nagtrabaho lang, government workers na nagtrabaho para sa bayan. So, sir.
Magandang gabi po, Mr. President, Senator Bongo, ating pong Executive Secretary Mel Dialdea, kasama po sa ating mga kabinete. Magandang gabi po sa ating mga kababayan. Ngayon po, magre-report po kami, mahal na Presidente, yung ating tinatawag na updates, sa significant updates sa ating vaccination program. Next slide, please. Nakikita po natin ngayon na, Mr. President, nasurpass na po natin yung ating target in terms of delivery. Sa ngayon po, 158 million doses po ang ating na-receive. Pero Mr. President, ito napakalaking po sa atin. 24 million po ang darating po ngayong week. 24 million in 1 week. At pakikita po mamaya kung ano po yung mga deliveries na yun, Mr. President. Unprecedented po yun. Kasi normally 7 million ang ating average po per week. Ngayon po, 24 million po, Mr. President. This week, we are about to breach 100 million doses administered, with 41 million Filipinos or 53% received the second dose. Ang magandang significant headway po, Mr. President, is yung vaccination ng minors, with more than 7 million already received the first dose and 2.1 million already finished the second dose. Ito po, nakita po natin talaga na gustong-gusto na po ng mga kabataan at saka ng kanilang mga magulang na mapakunahan na po ang ating mga minors so that they can start already the face-to-face program. Para nakita po natin talaga na yung ating mga kabataan gusto na po rin makalabas. So yun po, nakita po namin nung vaccination, 3 vaccination day, very prominent na more or less 60 to 80% ng mga vaccination site. Karamihan po doon, Mr. President, is sa mga kabataan po. And then, ano po natin yan, we are very confident, kami po ni Sec Vince at saka ni Sec Duque, and also ni Sec Anyo, confident po kami na 54 million Filipinos will be completing the second dose this year end. And tama po kayo, Mr. President, na malaki po ang tulong ng LGU at ng DILG sa implementasyon ng ating mga vaccination. So, si Sec Anyo po talaga ang isa sa mga nakita natin nag-orchestrate po ng mga LGU in order for them to be inspired na talaga makuha po natin yung lahat ng ating mga targets. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Pakipindot lang po yun. Sir, ito po yung makikita po natin, 24 million po yung yung darating po ngayon, ngayong week. Ngayon po, darating po yung 2.3 million ngayong gabi. So bukas po, darating po ang 8.2 million. At sa susunod na araw, sa Wednesday, 10 million. At sa susunod pa, meron pa tayong maabot na more or less 3 million. Sir, matutuwa po kami dahil kasi ang COVAX, ang nagbigay po ng marami na J&J kasi nag-request po kami dahil yun po para makuha po natin ang target tsaka po kasi marami po tayong geographically isolated areas ay talagang nakikita po natin na talagang kailangan na yung one dose. Mas madali po kasi one dose po yung J&J. So karamihan po ng mga po natin ng mga isolated areas, ng mga islands at saka yung malalayo sa Talaingod, sa Davao City, sa mga kanyang proplang areas. Lalo na po yung mga lumad at saka mga ITAS po natin na parang hindi na po uulit na ma-deploy po po natin. So pakipindot lang po yung pakipindot lang po para makita po natin yan. So makikita po natin ang darating po na doses for this week is 24,473,800 doses. Yung J&J po ay bigay po ng French government, Spanish government, Dutch government, Austrian government, Swedish government at saka po ng lahat ng member ng EU through COVAX. So napapasalamat po tayo sa COVAX dahil napakalaki po ng binigay nila. Ito namang 4.9 Pfizer, ito po yung procured natin na tinatawag natin ito yung 18 million na supposed to be na ma-deliver po ngayong December. Ang Moderna, ito po donation din po ng COVAX, Mr. President. Ito po, maganda po ito dahil kasi yung Moderna pwede natin gamitin sa pang-boosters at saka pang-minors. Normally po, ginagamit natin ng Moderna pang-boosters, lalo na po sa mga may comorbidities. At the same time, ginagamit po natin yan sa ating mga healthcare workers. Magdodonate din po ang China. Nagkaroon po kami ng dinner ng Chinese ambassador and they will be donating another 2 million. And they are very thankful, Mr. President, na yung itong Sinovac, at least na-complete na po natin yung deliveries nila na more or less 50 million. And then another, yung AstraZeneca, this being procured by the LGUs and also by the private sector, meron pong 2.9 million. But partly, meron din pong galing sa UK na donated at sa other countries. So ito po, Mr. President, ito po nag-a-assure na pwede na nating expand ang ating boosters. At the same time, yung sinasabi niyo po, Mr. President, na kumpleto na po yung ating vaccine up to the middle of the year of 2022. So ibig sabihin po, Mr. President, yung ating procurement and other donations, yung incoming President po, wala na pong problema sa vaccine dahil kasi yung ating ginagamit na vaccine, yung dinideliver po ngayon, para po na next year na po yun. Kasi yung 158 po yun, 108 lang ang kailangan natin for this year, para sa 54 million. Yung na-deliver po natin doon, more or less 78 million. Ito po, ilalaan na po natin to for next year, for the rest of our milestone. Takikita po mamaya, Mr. President, na planchado na po yung ating procurement and other deployment to 2022 year of administration. Next slide, please. Sir, kung makikita natin, itong 158, ito na po yung deliver na sa atin. So more or less kung ating target is only 54, 108 kayang-kaya na po nating magamit po. So tama-tama po na talagang meron pang more than 40 and marami pa po tayong darating na 51 million. So more or less 200 million po ang darating po ngayong year. So napakalaki ng ating magiging parang stockpile na kaya-kaya naman natin pong i-hold kasi karamihan po ng darating na mga vaccine, especially yung yung sa J&J, nagpapasalamat po kami sa COVAX. Ang kanyang expiry date is 2023 pa. 2023 pa po yung kanyang expiry date. Meaning, yung ating request na mas higher ang kanyang expiry date ay naibigay po na sa atin. Then pakikita po natin, Mr. President, malapit na talaga nating ma-breach yung 100 million. This is another significant milestone dahil kasi pagka once na-breach natin ng 100 million, more or less 50% po ang ating population ang makakinabang po na fully vaccinated. So makikita po natin na ang ating fully vaccinated na ngayon, Mr. President, is 41 million, which represents 53.20% or more than half of the percentage. Meaning, pwede na po tayo talaga mag-open and mag-expand for our boostering. At makikita po natin, ito ang ating pong tinututukan dahil kasi marami pong nagsasabi ng mga expert na at least dapat ma-continuous po natin ang ating sustainment doon sa mga vaccinated na more than 4 to 6 months. So pag-aaralan po ng ating mga expert na kung pwede nating expand na yung mag-booster is 4 to 6 months. Pag-aaralan po natin yan, Mr. President. Next slide, please. Sir, makikita po natin itong update vaccine administration by region. I think ito makita natin, Mr. President, there is no other city in the world na nakita po natin na 102% na po fully vaccinated yung kanyang elderly population. Palagi ko, Metro Manila lang po ang merong nakita natin na ganyan ang capability na nakita natin, na break natin yung hesitancy. At the same time, nakita po natin na 111% na po percentage yung kanyang first dose. Meaning, pati po yung mga bata na kukuha niya na po at kuha na po niya yung mga elderly niya. Ang maganda rito po, sir, ito pong nung karoon tayo ng tinatawag nating National Vaccination Day, sumipa po yung pag-arangkada, sumipa rin po yung kanilang capacity. So ngayon po mayroon po tayong 6 na regions na meron na pong more than 70% na tinatawag nating first dose na 70%. So nahandyan po ang CAR, which is 72%, ang Region 3 with 71%, Region 4A, 71%, Region 1 at saka Region 2 po. Bigla po yan, naging malaki po yun. Nakausap po natin ng dalawang governor na talagang halos nagpapaligsahan po sila na yung Region 1 at saka Region 2 talagang tumaas po ang kanilang capacity. And also Region 10 is also catching up. And yung lahat naman po naka-yellow, orange, ito po yung tinatawag natin meron ng more or less 60% and up. At nakikita po natin na kukunti na lang po, 4 na lang po na region ang medyo nahuli. Na ito po ang focus naman natin ngayon sa second National Vaccination Day. So itong Mimaropa, Region 5, Region 12, at saka yung region ng BARM, ito po ang tinatarget natin para mapataas na lalo ang kanilang natawag nating vaccination capacity at saka vaccination output. Next slide, please. Sir, ito po yung sinasabi namin po na tinatawag nating synchronization matrix. Ito po, itatawid po natin yung ating national vaccination program even beyond the national election at saka yung change ng administration. So ganun po ang ginagawa po natin, pinaplano po natin na kasi po nakikita natin yung effect ng national election, magkakaroon ng diversion yung attention ng ating mga political leaders. So we wanted na ang lahat ng ating vaccination program matapos po before the first quarter. So yung ating first milestone sa general population is matapos po yung 70% ng first dose. And then ito po ay nagko-constitute ng 54 million na at least second dose completed. Yung second milestone po natin is that meron po tayong 77 million na ma-vaccinate by end of first quarter. Same thing, ang sinasabi nga po ni Sec Duque, itong directive sa amin ni Sec Duque na before the end of the second quarter or before the transition government, we will be completing 90 million population with second dose completed. Ganon din po yung ating target sa children vaccination. Gusto po natin na matapos yung 12 to 17 by end of this year, more or less maka 80% na po tayo. And then by the start of first quarter, yung 511, ma-implement na po natin. Nag-submit na po ang Pfizer ng kanilang tinatawag nating amendment of the EUA to cover yung 5 to 11. And we will be expecting more or less na before the end of the year ay meron na po itong EUA. Then ganoon din po yung ano po natin, target po natin na yung 1.6 million na healthcare workers ay matapos na rin po mag-booster before the end of the quarter. Pero sa ngayon po nakita natin medyo mababa po yung ating boostering kaya gusto natin na matapos na po yan. And also yung third dose ng seniors, we would like to continue to cover yung 5 to 8 million before the end of the fourth quarter. So that's why ang nakikita natin, our two catch-up plans is the National Vaccination Day last November 29 and also December 1, and also yung second vaccination day this coming 15 December to 17 December. So ang po namin din po, Mr. President, yung boostering for government and economic frontliners and general population, we already started the boostering of those persons that had been vaccinated during March, April, and May. So we will finish po yon before the end of the year. And at the same time, yung po natin, we will start also expanding the vaccination of our July to December in phase by starting of first quarter. Meaning, ang po natin, we might decide because of the steady supply and nakita natin more than 200 million po ang darating before the end of the year, we might expand the boostering to the general population. So Mr. President, ito lang po ang report natin at sinasabi po natin na our national vaccination program transcends even the end of our administration, Mr. President.
Thank you, Secretary Galvez. Now, may idagdag lang ako. Mga kababayan, nakita naman ninyo yung deliveries, yung dumating ng bakuna. It was not intermittent, but it was with regularity na dumadating yung mga bakuna. And it needed the presence of either Secretary Anyo, Secretary Galvez Bensdison, and Secretary Duque. Kaya nung hindi naman ako nagalit, but I was complaining about the disrespect of officials of a separate Congress na para bang they treated my cabinet members na yung parang resource person nila kung saan nila nakuha. Alam mo, makita mo naman ang deliveries ng bakuna sa airport. Kailangan nandoon sila to verify, validate, and to make sure that what was agreed upon dineliver talaga ng tama. Yun ang ko. Kasi pinapatawag nila itong apat minsan sa umaga o sa hapon, pero hindi naman nila tinatawag to testify. And it happened several times. Ako na po ang hindi naman naawa, but it's our duty really to obey the processes of Congress also. It's given. Wala akong dyan. Admittedly, they have the power to summon, and if you do not obey the summons, you can be cited in contempt sa Congress. Walang question yan. Pero ilang beses na tinawag itong aking mga opisyal, kailangan pa siya pumunta ng airport, tapos they are being detained doon sa Congress without a clear path of how to proceed on when will they be called to testify. Kung akin ang habol ko lang doon, na treat us and the cabinet members with respect also. Kung in the future, kung tawagin ninyo, set a date and time, and tawagin ninyo sa panahon na yan at the appointed space dyan sa... Huwag ninyong paupuin dyan kasi maraming trabaho yan. COVID pa noon hanggang ngayon. Tapos ganun na lang ang tratamento ninyo. At kung parang pasigaw na ang tanong ninyo sa mga, they are also officials just like you. Walang sabi na appointed kayo, appointed lang sila kasi kayo elected. That's bullshit. They are there because that is provided for in the Constitution, and you have to have a secretary for each department. Hindi naman yan na mamimili ka lang ng kung sino-sino dyan ilagay mo. Do not place so much importance dyan sa position mo just because you are a senator. Ito si Gordon talagang lumaki ang ulo. He treats other people like inferior sa kanya. Gawain mo yan sa iba, wag sa akin. Putang ina mo. Talagang I will see to it that you will have your juice coming. Bastos ka eh. Bastos ka na tao, Gordon. Bastos ka. At kung hindi mag-agree ang mga senators dyan, ewan ko kung anong tingin ninyo sa karakter ng tao. How do you assess a person's deportment in public? Bastos. Sigaw-sigaw ka ng kapareho mo. Hindi, you are no higher than the cabinet. Tabla-tabla lang tayo dito, trabahante sa gobyerno. Bakit ka ganun? Bumubula pa yung baba mo na yung sa parmalin. Sabi ko, durugin mo yan. Wala ka nakita sa investigasyon. Cleared by COA, nagalit ka. Tapos kalkal ka ng kalkal. Kasi kikilala ko yung mga negosyante. Gago ka, kasalanan ko ba yung mga tao dito kung sinong magpunta sa akin magpakilala. At hindi naman yung residente no yan dito. Been in Davao for 22 na nga. So, kilala ko yan. Kaya kita mo transaction, malinis. Wala kang mga nakita. Walang overprice. Walang ghost deliveries. Wala kang nakita. Gusto mo kalkalin lahat. Hanggang dumating ka doon sa taxes. Walang bayad. Di patayin mo. Dapat sunugin mo yan sila. Pero wag yung mga cabinet members na gano'n ang tratamento ninyo. Kaya ako napilitan maggawa ng memorandum. Bahala ng Supreme Court dyan. Hindi ako papayag na or whatever is the outcome of that case, at least magkaroon tayo ng dito na we should treat each other with respect. Do not shout at the fellow workers of government, lalo na mga cabinet members. Kasi kung tinuloy mo yung gano'n, magkagulo talaga tayo. At sinabi ko sa kanila, stand up and tell them that you're leaving. If you are arrested, I will go there and get you. Ayaw ninyo, di gulo. Yung mga sabi niyo, I'm threatening. You are the one threatening the entire program of government. Anong threatening? Kayo lang ba marunong magsigaw-sigaw sa tao? Eh kung sabihin ko sa inyo yung putang ina ka, sige daw, anong sagot mo? Saan mo gustong makita tayo? Kalaki-laki ng mukha mo, hindi magmintis itong sampal ko. Let's check ka. We go now to Secretary Anyo sa update sa granular lockdown health protocol at telecommunications. And always itong anti-drug campaign.
Magandang gabi po, Mr. President, Executive Secretary Salvador Mejardea, Senator Bongo, fellow Cabinet IATF members, mga kababayan, magandang gabi po. Please, next slide. Ang una ko pong iuulat ay ang ating mga nagaganap na granular lockdown nationwide. Dahil po epektibo yung ating ginagawang alert level system, yung pagpapatupad ng ating minimum public health standard at ang ating massive na pagbabakuna, nakita po natin na talagang mababa na ang ating mga cases. Sa katunayan po sa buong Pilipinas, 42 areas na lamang po ang nasa granular lockdown at nakakaapekto sa 51 households o 107 individuals. Titingnan po natin sa National Capital Region, 0 na po. Wala nang area sa NCR ang nasa granular lockdown. Next slide, please. Dito naman po sa ating record ng mga violations sa community health protocols. Nakikita po natin na sa loob ng 1 linggo, medyo tumaas ng konti ang mga nahuli natin na hindi nagsusuot ng mask. Pero bumaba naman po ang ating violation sa mass gathering at tumaas din ng konti ang ating pagbabiolate sa physical distancing. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin po natin i-implement ito para ma-instill natin ang disiplina sa ating mga kababayan. Next slide, please. Dito naman po, Mr. President, magbibigay po ako ng ulat sa paggamit ng Stay Safe Philippines contact tracing apps. Ito po yung opisyal na contact tracing apps na ginagamit ng ating mga LGUs at ating pong iminumungkahi sa ating mga kababayan na sila po ay mag-register. Sa kabuang 1,634 LGUs, nakikita po natin na 1,376 or 84% po ng ating LGU ay gumagamit nito. At a total of 123,003 organizations, government offices, companies and LGUs po ang gumagamit ng ating Stay Safe Philippines contact tracing app. At sa registered po na 8.9 million registered user, nakapag-generate ng 7.07 QR codes at nakapag-scanning ng 22,994,866 QR scanning. Ito po ay napaka-importante sapagkat dito po napatunayan natin 56 na confirmed individual ang nahuli natin o nakita natin lumalabag at pumunta sa iba't ibang probinsya. Kaya nabigyan din natin ng impormasyon yung mga probinsya na to at nakapaghanda at nakapagkandak po ng contact tracing. So atin muli hinihimok natin yung ating mga kababayan na mag-register sa Stay Safe Philippines contact tracing application. Next slide. Sa inyo naman pong pag-uutos, Mr. President, napabilisin ang pagbibigay ng mga permit sa ating mga towers para makatulong sa ating telecommunication, lalo na ang karamihan nating mga activities na ngayon ay based online. Meron pong 4,172 na mga approved permit or clearances na nakatayo ngayon sa 538 cities and municipalities. So sa ngayon po ay 1,087 ang pending permit or clearances at ito ay pinoprocess ng 273 cities and municipalities. Pinasimplify po natin ang mga requirements, kaya napakabilis na po ang pag-i-issue ng mga permit. Next slide. Dito naman po sa larangan ng anti-drugs. Kahit po nasa pandemic tayo, tuloy-tuloy pa rin ang ating mga operations. Nakapag-conduct po tayo ng 940 operations sa loob ng isang linggo. Actually po, ito ay December 5 to 11, so almost mga 6 days lang po. At nakapag-arresto tayo ng 1,253 suspects. Mayroon 21 na nag-surrender at wala namang nasawi sa mga nasabing operasyon. Ang total estimated value na ating nasamsam sa loob ng 6 na araw, 72,869,498 pesos. Ngayon naman po, Mr. President, konting update lang po. Dahil po sa papasok na bagyong Odette na inaasahan natin papasok simula bukas ng gabi at aalis hanggang December 18, nagpalabas na po tayo ng alert at ng advisory sa ating mga LGUs upang makapaganda sa darating na bagyo. At muli po ay nire-remind natin ang lahat ng mga local chief executives na dapat kayo ay nasa kani-kanilang mga nasasakupan bago, habang at papalabas ang bagyo. At ito ay magpapatupad ng ating off-plan listo. At sa susunod naman pong bakunahan, yung Bayanihan, bakunahan Part 2, na gagawin po natin sa December 15 to 17, yung po mga tatamaan ng bagyo ay atin muna i-reset into December 20, 21, and 22. Sa ngayon po ay mayroon ng 32 probinsya na nakapagtala ng 70% and up sa first dose sa target population at 22 probinsya naman ang mayroong 50% and up na fully vaccinated sa kanilang target population. After po ng bakunahan, Bayanihan bakunahan Part 2, ay magbibigay ako ng ulat sa mga individual na performances ng ating region, probinsya, cities, and highly urbanized cities, and even yung tinatawag natin independent component cities. So yun lamang po, Mr. President, kami po ay naghahanda para sa ating bakunahan, Bayanihan bakunahan Part 2. Magandang gabi po.
Sir, Secretary Anyo, can we have a compilation of all shabu seized during this year's starting during my term? Kung ilan na ang toneladang shabu na embargo ng gobyerno? Just for our, it's also intended to apprise the human rights. And maybe when the time comes, we will use it to show to the ICC na that's the reason why I am not going to bow down to their jurisdiction, is because they would see the enormity of the problem of shabu in the country. Para malaman lang po nila.
Oo, Mr. President, gagawa po ako ng ulat. Pero sa ngayon po, ang tinataya po namin ay nasa 79 to 80 billion pesos of shabu ang ating pong nasamsam. Gagawa po ako ng detalyadong report sa susunod na ating pagpupulong, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Director Domingo, it's your turn.
Magandang gabi po, Mr. President. Good evening po kay Senator Bongo, KES, tsaka sa mga miyembro po ng Cabinet. Magbigay lang po ako ng konting update, especially po dito sa Omicron variant na medyo pinangangambahan po natin ngayon at binabantayan natin na hindi makapasok. No? Next slide, please. Kung maalala po natin, the first time po na na-report ang variant na ito was only 3 weeks ago. 3 linggo pa lamang po ang nakakalipas, no? At simula po noong 3 linggong yan, as of today, meron na pong 63 countries na nagka-identify po ng Omicron variant infection sa kanila pong lugar. Sa Pilipinas po, wala pa po. Sa lahat po ng ating mga sa Philippine Genome Center, wala pa pong nakikita na Omicron variant dito po sa Pilipinas. Ngayon, ang WHO, dinesignate po ito na variant of concern. And when we say that, it means tinitingnan po natin kung meron bang increase sa kanyang transmissibility o yung kanyang capability na manghawa, kung may increased virulence or kung mas grabe po ba ang sakit na dulot niya, o kung meron decrease sa effectiveness ng ating mga diagnostic test, ng ating mga gamot at ng ating mga bakuna. At so far, ito po ang ating nalalamang impormasyon. Next slide, please. Doon po sa transmission, mukhang mabilis nga po talaga siyang makahawa, no? At least very similar to the Delta variant. In fact, sa UK, after po nila makadetect ng several cases, ngayon po marami na sila nakikita sa Europe at saka sa UK na cases na hindi na po nanggagaling sa travelers, kundi local transmission na. Kaya po talagang kailangan mag-ingat kasi ito po ay mukhang mabilis din po siyang makahawa. Hindi lang natin alam kung mas mabilis pa or mas easily transmissible pa kaysa sa Delta variant. Ang maganda naman pong balita yung tungkol sa virulence or yung severity ng illness. So far po, karamihan ng nakikita na patients na mayroong Omicron have either mild disease or are asymptomatic. No? Mukhang hindi naman po siya worse than the Delta variant or the other variants previously identified. Pero since libo pa nga lang po ang mga kaso, binabantayan po natin na ngayon ito sa buong mundo. Next slide, please. Yun naman pong sa testing, meron pong mga PCR test kit na nakita sa ibang bansa. Yun pong ang dinedetect niya yung tinatawag na S-gene na hindi po nadidetect itong Omicron. Pero dito po sa Pilipinas, wala po tayong approved na ganyang mga test kit. In fact, all of the test kits that are being used in the Philippines continue to detect the infection. At nadidetect po ang Omicron variant. No? Kung sakaling makita siya rito, makikita po siya sa mga test kit na ginagamit natin at approved po ng FDA. Ngayon, ito nga po ang pakiusap natin dun sa mga laboratory. Kung meron po silang makita, because some test kits detect several genes doon po sa doon po sa virus. Kapag may nakita sila na positive for some genes pero negative doon sa S gene o may dropout doon po sa S gene, ang request po namin ay refer po nila ito for sequencing sa Genome Center para makita kung ito po ay Omicron. Next slide, please. At kung ganun din po, kung mayroong mga unusual PCR test results or yung mga clinician natin, kung meron po silang makita ng mga cases na talagang from history taking at saka physical examination, sigurado sila or very strong a suspicion nila na ito ay COVID-19 illness pero negative sa test, ang hinihiling po natin ay pa-retest po nila ito or padala po for sequencing para lang malaman natin kung meron tayong hindi na-detect ito pong bagong variant. And the good thing about the antigen detection tests naman po na available dito sa atin, they are all expected to continue to detect ito pong SARS-CoV-2 infection, including Omicron. So lahat po ng antigen test at this time are still very useful. Next slide. So sa diagnostic po, wala naman tayo pang problema. Sa therapeutics naman po, karamihan ng gamot na ginagamit for severe illness are still expected to work, especially po yung mga non-specific na gamot na ginagamit para po ma-block ang inflammation or ma-modulate ang inflammation at saka yung antithrombotics para hindi mag-clot ang dugo. Ito po mga gamot na to katulad ng corticosteroids, yun po mga interleukin receptors na tinatawag natin, and antithrombotics o pampalab ng dugo are expected to retain their efficacy. So magagamot pa rin naman po ang mga kaso na severe cases kahit po ibang variant or itong bagong variant na ang darating. Next slide. Yun pong hindi tayo masyadong sigurado yung mga monoclonal antibodies kasi ito po mga targeted therapy po ito, antibody na dinevelop using the original variant na meron po ng S-protein. So kung hindi po niya nadidetect yung S-protein dahil natanggal po dito sa mutated variant, maaari pong itong mga targeted monoclonal antibodies might not be very useful. However, yung mga antiviral agents po na ginagamit na nagkakaroon ng effect sa metabolism ng virus para hindi po ito makareplicate, they might have some reduced efficacy pero hindi naman po likely na significant. So magagamit pa rin po itong ating mga bagong antiviral drugs. Next slide please. Sa bakuna naman po, ang ating experience historically, is that every time meron pong konting pagbabago doon sa variant or sa virus, medyo bumababa po ng konti ang efficacy, no? However, we also know that they are still they're still very useful and they remain critical. The vaccines are critical in reducing severe disease and death. So kahit po mabawasan yung efficacy niya from preventing illness, most of them do not decrease the protection against severe illness, severe COVID, and death from COVID-19. So ganun din po ang nakikita natin sa Omicron, no? Especially kapag na-complete po yung dose at yun po mga nagkaroon ng booster 6 months later, are probably going to benefit from the vaccination, and the benefits definitely outweigh the risk. Ang WHO po ngayon is currently working to assess potential impact of the new variant on vaccine effectiveness. However, the general consensus is that they do retain protection even against the new variant. At update lang po, Mr. President, yung pong nakalipas na linggo, yung Pfizer, nag-apply na po sila ng EUA for children 5 to 11 years old. Kasi ngayon po 12 to 17 ang nagagamitan natin ng Pfizer at saka po ng Moderna. Pero yung Pfizer, pinayagan na po ito 5 to 11 years old sa US, sa European Union, sa Canada, and several other countries. And they finally sent their application to us. Ito po ang ine-evaluate ngayon ng ating mga eksperto. And we hope to finish evaluating po within the next, maybe 2 weeks. At ang pagkakailaba lang po, medyo iba po ang iba po ang preparation ng vaccine na to. So hindi po ito yung vaccine na ginagamit natin sa adult na binawasan lamang, no, kundi talagang mas mababa po yung concentration niya of the same active ingredient, yun pong mRNA, at saka yun pong kanyang volume ay yung dosage ay mas mababa. So kung bibili po tayo nito for 5 to 11, it's going to be a different vaccine than the ones that we are using now from Pfizer that we are using for adults. Next slide, please. So huli na lang po, pakiusap natin sa ating mga kababayan, talagang aside from the alam na po nating tried and tested natin na pagsuot ng mask at saka pag-iwas sa maraming tao na lugar, sana po sa ating vaccination days na darating, pumunta na po kayo. No? Unang-una, pinaka-importante po sana yung mga unvaccinated pa. All adults na wala pa pong natatanggap kahit isa, at saka po yung mga 12 to 17-year-olds, sana po dalhin na po sa ating mga vaccination centers. Pangalawa, yun po mga incompletely vaccinated. Kung naka-isang dose pa lang po kayo, tas 2 dose ang schedule nyo, kunin nyo po yung pangalawang dose dahil nakakatulong. Pangatla po, yung ating mga booster doses. Pag nakalagpas na po ng 6 months, kapag po lalo na sa healthcare workers, senior citizen, immunocompromised, and all adults po, 18 years old and above. Kung nakalagpas na po ng 6 months, pwede na po tayong magpa-booster dose. At kung ang natanggap po natin ay yung Sputnik Light or yung Janssen, 3 buwan lamang po ang hinihintay, pwede na pong magkaroon ng booster dose ngayon pong vaccination days natin. Next slide. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Domingo. And I would call how would you call this? Ika nga tawag nila, si Little President, tawag nila sa mga executive secretary. Para siyang dean ng mga cabinet members. Bing Bong Medialdia. Bong.
Good evening, Mr. President and fellow members of the Cabinet. I am here to report on the work of the Office of the Executive Secretary, or the OES, from the time your administration began in June 2016. OES has a unique mandate among all agencies. We do not, for example, build roads or bridges as the DPWH has so ably done, nor do we operate public institutions like public schools and hospitals as the DepEd and the DOH have been tirelessly doing. Rather, we have been assisting the President in managing the entire government bureaucracy in the executive branch. As such, the OES has been involved in every aspect of governance under this administration. This is something the President very well knows, but we report on our work today not just as a recap for the President's appreciation, but also for the benefit of the public who may not be that much aware of what we have been doing. By deliberate choice, my office has stayed outside of the limelight, preparing to work behind the scenes. But we will break our oath of silence momentarily to give the public a glimpse of the role of the Office of the Executive Secretary. The role of the OES is to provide staff support to the President. Every directive, issuance, memorandum, or even a letter that the President signs goes through a thorough process of deliberation. From the time it was conceptualized up to its promulgation, the OES is there, the invisible guiding hand, making sure the President's orders are complied with. Through various points of view and interests needs to be taken into consideration are all subjected to comprehensive legal research to ensure that whatever the President would sign and approve could withstand any legal challenge that may be brought against it. Our office, in short, undertook what is known as the complete staff work on every proposal we elevated to the President. As of this date, the OES has processed a total of 156 executive orders, 1,257 presidential proclamations, 92 memorandum circular, 44 administrative orders, and 58 memorandum orders. Whether these issuances have met expectations is ultimately up to the President to say. But I wish to draw attention to the fact that thus far, not a single executive order, proclamation, memorandum circular, or other executive issuance of the President has been struck down by the courts. Some have challenged, such as the issuance of the Boracay Rehabilitation and martial law in Mindanao, but their validity has been upheld. My report today will focus only on three of the major aspects necessary for development, that is, governance, health, and national security and peace. The other aspects will be subject of another report in the near future. On health, the OES, together with the Department of Health, assisted the President in implementing his directive to ban smoking in public places. The President issued EO number 26, Series 2017, which prohibits smoking within enclosed public places and public conveyances. In compliance to the directive of the President to provide a comfortable life for all, EO number 104, Series 2020, and EO number 155, Series 2021, aims to improve the healthcare access by regulating the retail prices of drugs and medicines. The EOs impose maximum retail price and or maximum wholesale price on components to medicines for the top killers in the Philippines, like hypertension, diabetes, mellitus, and cancer. In 2020, the President was faced with the monumental task of fighting COVID-19 pandemic through the implementation of a nationwide COVID-19 strategy, which involves a widespread vaccination program, the strengthening of the Philippine healthcare system, and testing and contact tracing measures. Through EO 112 Series 2020, the first enhanced community quarantine was imposed. To ensure the accessibility and affordability of COVID-19 tests and test kits, the President issued EO 118 Series 2020, which directed the DOH in coordination with DTI to determine, formulate, and implement a price range for COVID-19 test kits and testing administered by hospitals, laboratories, and other health establishments and facilities. To enable the government to buy and administer vaccines in order to secure the health and lives of the Filipino people, the President issued EO number 121, Series 2020, granting authority to the Director General of the Food and Drug Administration to issue emergency use authorization for COVID-19 drugs and vaccines upon proof of adequate data from well-known controlled trials. The President also recently issued EO 154, Series of 2021, directing the establishment of the Overseas Filipino Workers Hospital and creating the Interagency Committee on the OFW Hospital. It seeks the establishment of a specialty government hospital primarily devoted to OFWs in recognition of the valuable contribution of Filipino migrant workers and to alleviate their health concerns and problems. On governance, in compliance with the President's directive to improve the service of government by making government offices more efficient, transparent, and accountable, the OES prepared the following key issuances which the President approved. EO number 2, Series 2016, operationalized the Freedom of Information right. EO number 77, Series 2019, laid down the rules for government official and foreign travels of government personnel. Administrative Order number 23, Series 2020, in conjunction with the Anti-Red Tape Act, required all government agencies to retain only requirements, steps, and processes necessary to perform their mandate. Bawal na yung dadaan ng papel sa 10 tagapirma kung pwede naman pala isang tao lang ang mag-check at a-approve ng requirements. True to the Tatak Duterte seal of governance, the OES pushed the establishment of the 8888 Citizens Complaint Hotline, 8888 Citizens Complaint Center, which operates 24 hours from Mondays to Sundays to allow the public to report their grievances via calls, text messages, and its website. The 8888 Citizens Complaint Center started its operations on November 3, 2017, with 40 telephone lines only and 153 human resources, and was able to handle 46,264 calls. The center currently has 60 lines and 131 staff, and was able to handle 689,074 calls from January to November of this year. Hindi ako masyadong magaling sa math, but from 46,000 to 689,000 process call, that is very significant. That is 689 Filipinos who were able to get in touch with government. The Executive Secretary is often referred to as the Little President, or described as primus inter pares, the first among equals. But it comes the arduous task of making sure the President's directives are strictly complied with, which includes disciplining officials that go astray. The office also has been providing technical legal assistance to the President in review of the enrolled bills passed by Congress. We processed, reviewed, and recommended the total of 612 enrolled bills from July 1, 2016 to March 2021, which were eventually signed by the President into law. Among the priority legislation enacted into law during the 17th Congress are the University Access to Free Tertiary Education Act, the Bangsa-Moro Organic Law, the Philippine Identification System Act, Ease of Doing Business Act, the Train Law, Expanded Maternity Leave Law, and the Universal Health Care Act. During the 18th Congress, the Congress passed into law the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act, Bayanihan to Recover as One Act, Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, Coconut Farmers and Industry Trust Fund Act, Malasakit Center Act, and the COVID-19 Vaccination Program Act of 2021. On the national security and peace, lastly, I shall now turn to our contributions towards upholding national security and peace. In view of the President's desire for a decisive response against the so-called Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, the President declared martial law in Mindanao in 2017. The OES assisted the President in preparing Proclamation number 216 series of 2017 and the 3 extension of martial law period, as well as in defending these issuances before Congress. The OES constantly affirmed the President's commitment that martial law in Mindanao will not be abused. True enough, our uniformed personnel implemented martial law in Mindanao in an orderly and lawful manner. As I mentioned earlier, all proclamations of the President on martial law in Mindanao were upheld by the courts. When the President assumed office, he opened channels for peace to all rebel groups, including the NDF, CPP, NPA. In spite of the best efforts of the administration, the NDF, CPP, NPA engaged in various acts of hostility and terroristic violence. This led to the issuance of Proclamation number 360, series of 2017, declaring the termination of peace negotiations with NDF, CPP, NPA, and was later on followed by Proclamation number 374, series 2017, declaring the CPP, NPA a designated identified terrorist organization under the Terrorism Financing, Prevention and Suppression Act of 2012. The administration is aware that the only way to lasting peace is for the state to recognize and address the root causes of all tension and conflict. To this end, the President issued EO number 70, series 2018, which institutionalized the whole-of-nation approach in attaining inclusive and sustainable peace and created the National Task Force with the objective of ending local communist armed conflict. The President likewise created Task Force Balikloob through the issuance of Administrative Order number 10, Series 2018, to centralize government efforts to reintegrate former rebels and address their economic and social psychological needs. With the passage of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, the Anti-Terrorism Council was able to designate terrorist groups and organizations. As a result, the bank accounts of these designated terrorists were frozen by the Anti-Money Laundering Council. Mr. President, time does not permit me to mention many other contributions of the OES in the realization of the President's vision for the country. Please allow me to end my report with a little anecdote. Former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, referring to the government of her country, remarked that steering gigantic government bureaucracy sometimes felt like you were steering a ship the size of an aircraft carrier while using a small rudder made for a lifeboat. It was difficult to lead such a huge organization towards the directions the leader wants it to take. The same is true for all countries, including our own. Nonetheless, my office has sought to do to the best of our ability is to hand to the President the tools to enable him to effectively steer the Philippine government to where he wants it to go. We have done our best to hand to the President not a paddle, but a reliable rudder fit for a ship by which he could steer the government towards the realization of his noble aspirations for the country. This rudder was in the form of the various executive issuances that conveyed the President's marching orders to the different departments and agencies, and also in the form of the guidance and leadership we have provided to different interagency bodies of which we are a part. We trust that effort and diligence which went into every written order and into every meeting have served the President well, and that many of these issuances would benefit the country for many years, even decades to come. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Secretary Medjaldia. Yeah, your talk winds up today's meeting. Let me just say a few words to the Filipino people. We continue to serve you well, and aming maasahan ninyo na lahat ng ginagawa namin ay para sa bayan, legal, at yung pera ninyo ay nasa mabuting kamay. If by chance you have a question about a particular transaction in government, or would want to know the money or the whereabouts of the money na gusto ninyong malaman, feel free to write us at 888, and we will call the particular secretary, department secretary, to come here and to explain to you what you want to know about the workings of government. So yan lang ho. That is the guarantee that I can give you. And at this time, we will say that we will be celebrating Christmas in the coming days. Stay safe, and yung wala pang bakuna, mamatay ako sa inyo. Mamatay ako o kayo ang patayin ko. Magpabakuna kayo para sa kabakanan ng ating bayan lahat. And wala pang booster, magpa-booster na kayo. Nandyan yung bakuna, nandyan na for your pleasure of using, para ang ating bayan makakamit ng maybe herd immunity. It is not coming forthwith, but maybe in a few months we'll be able to do that. Maraming salamat sa pagtangkilig sa programang ito, at mabuhay ang Pilipino. Salamat po.